Okay, let's dive right into this explainer and set up what I think is the ultimate central mystery. Every single night you close your eyes, the lights go out, and your brain completely cuts itself off from the outside world. Yet instead of experiencing total darkness, your mind constructs an entire immersive three-dimensional reality. You walk, you talk, you feel the wind, and you interact with other people. Why does the sleeping brain build these incredibly complex worlds while we rest? I mean, it's a biological phenomenon that has literally baffled philosophers and scientists for centuries. But today, we're going to look at some groundbreaking research that just might hold the answer.
Take a second to just reflect on your own dreams, because they aren't just a quirky nighttime hallucination. They're actually the master key to understanding the deep mystery of human consciousness itself. Think about it. If we could figure out why the brain spontaneously generates a vibrant, lived experience while we're fast asleep and completely isolated in a dark room, we get so much closer to answering the absolute biggest question in all of science. Why do we have an internal, subjective experience? Like, why aren't we just biological robots operating in the dark?
Now, philosopher Thomas Metzinger poses a really provocative idea here. He suggests that our waking life is essentially just an online dream. Think about how that fundamentally blurs the line between wakefulness and sleep. Whether you're awake or dreaming, it's always your brain constructing a model of reality for you to live inside. When you're awake, that model is constrained by sensory data, what you actually see and hear. But when you're asleep, the brain is simply running that exact same world-building software offline.
Section 1. Virtual Reality, the Ultimate Simulator.
So to truly grasp this, we need to understand what researchers call phenomenal consciousness. Simply put, it's the feeling of being an organism inside a world. It's the presence of experiences. When you dream, your brain generates a spatio-temporal world, meaning a world with space and time, and it places a self-model, basically an avatar of you, right at the center of it. This virtual reality is generated entirely by the brain, completely unbound by any external sensory stimuli. You don't need real light to see the sun in a dream, and you definitely don't need real ground to feel yourself walking.
Consider this mind-blowing fact that proves just how robust this internal virtual reality is. Research shows that people born completely blind, people who have never experienced waking visual sight, still report dreams filled with visual imagery. Similarly, individuals with congenital paraplegia, who have never walked a day in their waking lives, regularly report dreaming about walking, running, and swimming. I mean, wow. This decisively proves that dreams aren't just your waking life on replay. They aren't just a memory dump of things you've physically done.
So the crucial takeaway here is that our brains possess a hard-coded simulation model. Evolution has literally pre-installed a world-building engine inside our heads that constructs these virtual realities automatically. It creates a protected biological space for experience, complete with space, time, and a physical body, regardless of what our actual physical waking limitations might be. But this brings up a massive question. If this VR simulator takes so much energy to run every single night, what is it actually for?
Section 2. Social Simulation, Theory of Dreaming. Imagine a sleeping head literally overflowing with a massive crowd of people. This visual perfectly captures the core of researcher Jarno Tuominen's groundbreaking social simulation theory of dreaming. His theory argues that our dreams are not random. Instead, they specifically and preferentially act as virtual reality platforms for us to practice social interactions. According to this theory, the biological function of dreaming is to serve as an evolutionary social simulator, allowing us to safely navigate complex human relationships offline.
Section 3. Testing Hypotheses, a Scientific Review.
Okay, let's treat this next part like a rapid-fire detective story. Does this social simulation theory actually hold up to rigorous scientific scrutiny? Well, Tuominen's research program tested 4 specific, measurable hypotheses to evaluate if dreams truly function as this evolutionary social simulator. They are: 1. The sociality bias hypothesis. 2. The strengthening hypothesis. 3. The practice and preparation hypothesis. And finally, the compensation hypothesis. Let's look at the verdict for each one to see what the data actually reveals about our sleeping minds.
First up, the sociality bias hypothesis. The verdict here? Passed with flying colors. The empirical data proves that our dreams are significantly more social than our actual waking hours. When researchers compared dream diaries to waking life logs, they found that even if you spend your entire day totally alone in front of a computer, your brain will still populate your dreams with a really high density of people and social interactions. Your brain has a clear, built-in bias to simulate social scenarios. Next, we have the strengthening hypothesis. This was the idea that dreams specifically serve to maintain and increase social bonding with our closest family and friends. Interestingly, the verdict here was actually mixed. The theory only gained partial support because it turns out our dreams don't always focus on reinforcing our closest, most important relationships during normal day-to-day life. We don't just dream of our spouses and best friends. Our brain actually simulates a much wider variety of social interactions.
Now, when we look at the third test, the practice and preparation hypothesis, the data reveals something fascinating. Exactly 1/5, or 20% of all dream interactions, simulate highly complex, positive social interactions. This strongly supports the idea that dreams are indeed social practice spaces. We're actively rehearsing complex social behaviors, practicing how to navigate relationships, and preparing for future social encounters, all while we safely lie in bed.
Section 4. Impact of isolation. Social seclusion.
Which brings us to the final test in our detective story, the compensation hypothesis. The assumption here was that if you completely isolate yourself in the real world, your brain will overcompensate by dreaming up way more social interactions to make up for the deficit. The verdict? Complete fail. And the fascinating finding here is that short-term social seclusion doesn't actually increase your overall baseline need for social dreaming. Your dream sociality remains remarkably stable, proving that the simulation has a steady, hard-coded baseline that doesn't just desperately react to a few days of loneliness.
So if the overall volume didn't change, what did change during that isolation study? Well, while overall sociality stayed stable, short-term social seclusion dynamically reconfigured the actual type of dreams people had. Interactions with totally unknown strangers dropped significantly. But surprisingly, this physical isolation triggered a measurable physiological increase in REM sleep. Your brain fundamentally shifts its sleep architecture and fine-tunes its social simulations based on your environment, even if the overall volume of social dreaming remains completely steady.
Section 5. Consciousness Unbound, the Grand Conclusion.
Let's bring all this incredible empirical evidence together. Over a century ago, Havelock Ellis said that, rightly understood, dreams may furnish us with clues to the whole of life. This research shows how incredibly prophetic that really was. Unlocking the biological function of dreaming, realizing that it's an evolutionary virtual reality designed to help us navigate the complex social webs of human existence, brings us a massive step closer to solving the absolute mystery of consciousness itself. The brain doesn't just passively receive reality, it actively builds it, every single night, to make us better at surviving together.
Which leaves us with a profound thought to end on. If your waking reality is just an online dream, and your sleeping reality is a sophisticated social simulator designed by millions of years of evolution, it completely flips the script on what is real. Tonight, when the lights go out and your brain boots up its offline virtual reality, who are you going to interact with? And more importantly, what is your brain trying to teach you? Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and sleep well.